You sit on a low bench beside the hearth, its stone frame still warm beneath your hands, though no flame has touched it in hours. The air holds the quiet after work, not the silence of emptiness, but the deep calm of things well used and now at peace. Above you, beams cross overhead like ancient roots woven into wood that knows how to hold weight without complaint. Dust floats in slow spirals where light from a single high window slips through, catching on fibers no one has brushed for months. The scent is clean, not sharp or smoky, but the gentle memory of linseed and pine resin, of wool dried near heat, of iron cooled just enough to be safe. This is a Dwarven hearth workshop, though it bears little resemblance to any forge you might have imagined from stories. No clanging hammers, no molten metal. The anvil lies covered beneath a folded cloth, its surface smooth and unmarked, like skin after healing. A row of tools rests in their usual places, not hung neatly, but left where they were last set down, as if time forgot to order them back into place. There is no urgency here. No one rushes. The only movement comes from the slow rise and fall of breath inside your chest. You are safe. You are known. This is a place built for rest, not labor. And beside you sits the hearth keeper, tall, broad in the shoulders, their hands long-fingered but quiet, with knuckles that have seen years of careful work without ever needing to be strong. Their face is lined like riverbed stone, worn smooth by time and patience. Eyes dark and deep as old earth. They do not speak at first. They simply place one hand on the wooden bench between you, fingers resting lightly, then turn their gaze toward a small tray of pegs. They are made from ash, each one shaped with care, but never polished to shine. Some have tiny knots in them like scars. Others taper gently, as if they were meant for something gentle. Perhaps holding shut a cabinet that only opens once a year. The keeper picks up a single peg and turns it between their fingers, feeling its weight, testing the grain. Then they place it into one of 3 small bowls arranged on the bench, one filled with smooth ones, another with slightly curved pieces, the third for those with irregularities, not discarded, just set aside. You watch them do this. You may join if you wish. There is no need to help, but there is space here for your hands too. The pegs are arranged in a loose circle on the bench's edge, each one waiting only to be noticed. If you reach out and take one, just one, it will not change anything. No task must be finished. Nothing depends on whether you sort all of them or leave them where they are. The hearth keeper does not look at you when they say, "This is how we rest." Their voice comes low, like stones settling in a deep riverbed. It doesn't rise to fill the room. It simply fills your ears with shape and warmth. Not by forgetting work, but by remembering that work need not be finished. They set down the last peg from their hand and then lift another tray. This one of thick cloths, folded into squares, no larger than a palm. These are not for cleaning or covering hot metal. They were used once to press seams in leather, or perhaps as padding beneath delicate instruments. Now they lie stacked, like old letters waiting to be read. The keeper takes the first cloth and begins folding it again. Slowly, deliberately. One corner tucked into another, then a second fold that creates a small rectangle with even edges. You notice how their fingers press down at each crease. Not hard, but enough to leave a mark in memory. When finished, they place it gently on top of the other folded squares, which already form a neat pile. If you would like, you can take one cloth and fold it yourself. Not because there's any purpose behind it, but because folding is an act that holds stillness. It doesn't require speed. It does not demand completion. You may stop at any moment. No one will ask why the fold isn't perfect. No one will care if you leave half of them unfolded. The keeper turns now to a drawer in the bench, its runner worn down from decades of sliding open and closed, but still moving smoothly despite years of use. They lift it halfway out and take up a small jar of wax. It is not beeswax or tallow, but something darker, thickened like sap that has lived for centuries underground. The keeper dips their fingers into the wax, then rubs it slowly along the edge of the runner, working in one direction only, left to right, smooth and even without haste. The motion is so quiet you barely hear it, just a soft whisper where waxy resin meets wood. You can feel the warmth from your hands begin to rise as they press into your skin, not from heat, but from attention. There are no instructions given about how much wax should be used, or when the runner will stop needing care. The only rule is that you may do it at all, and if you choose not to, nothing changes. Next comes a tray of cork stoppers. They come in different sizes, each one slightly irregular, like little caps made from living things long after they've stopped breathing. Some are light brown, others darkened near the edges where moisture has seeped into them over time. The keeper picks up one and rolls it between their thumb and forefinger, testing its weight. Then they place it in a small indentation on the tray, not to store, but to arrange. There is no need to organize by size or shape. No order is required. You might take one if you want. Just pick it up and set it where your hand guides. Or you may simply watch as the hearth keeper places them down with care, each one fitting into a shallow well like a name returning home. Then comes winding cord, not rope, not for hauling or binding. This is plain twine, natural colored and unspun in any special way. Just fiber spun once through time and left to rest. The keeper takes the end between their fingers and begins rolling it slowly around their palm, letting it unwind as they go. It forms a coil that rests on the bench like something sleeping. You can watch this happen without needing to touch anything at all. But if your hands feel restless, if there's a quiet ache in them from not doing anything, you may take up some of the cord and wind it yourself. Not for any use, but just because winding is an act of return, thread goes back into itself again and again until motion becomes calm. The next task is smoothing a small pad made of felt that has no leather beneath it, soft as moss underfoot, light as breath on glass. The keeper runs their palm over its surface in long strokes from one end to the other, pressing down with just enough weight to feel where fibers have shifted or frayed slightly. They do not try to fix them. They only acknowledge each tiny imperfection and pass by it. You may lie your hand upon the pad if you wish. Press gently against it as if testing its memory of touch. Or simply let it be, knowing that nothing needs fixing. The felt does not need to become smooth. It already is. Finally, the keeper picks up a brass hinge, cold now, untouched by flame or hammer for days. They place it on the edge of the bench, near where tomorrow's work will begin. Not yet assembled, not yet needed. Just set down with quiet certainty that someone, perhaps themselves, perhaps another, will return to it when time permits. You are still seated on the edge of the wooden bench, where the hearth's warmth has long since retreated into stone and shadow, leaving behind a quiet that settles like dust in still air. The room breathes slowly now, not with motion, but with presence. There is nothing to be done beyond what already is. You may sit. You may lean forward slightly or rest your arms on your knees. Your shoulders are no longer braced against the weight of a day's work. They have softened into the shape of ease. There is a small basket beside you now, not one that holds tools or scraps, but something softer, a nest of dried mosses carefully gathered from deep beneath the eaves where the stones meet the earth. They are dark and curled at the tips, like old hands folded in prayer, each strand still bearing the faint scent of damp stone and root sleep. The hearth keeper reaches into it without speaking, lifts out a single tuft, and places it on the bench between your fingers. Not as an instruction, not as a task, merely as an offering. You may leave it there. You may press it lightly against your palm and feel how its texture holds memory. How one end is frayed from being pulled through soil. How another curls inward like something trying to remember itself. There are no rules about what happens next. No need to do anything with the moss at all. But if you choose to turn it over in your fingers, to trace where the fibers split and rejoin, to feel their brittle resilience, then that is allowed. The room does not care whether you do or don't. It only holds space for whatever movement comes from within. The light has gone low now, not from darkness, but from depth. A quiet settling behind the eyes. You might close them if it feels right, or keep them open and let your gaze drift to where the wall meets the floor, where a thin line of shadow stretches across stone like a seam in time. There is no need to follow it, no reason to trace its path. Nearby, another small object lies on the bench, not yet touched, not waiting for use, just resting. It is a plain clay token, about the size of your palm, smoothed by hands long gone, but still bearing their imprint. The surface is cool, almost like polished river stone. You can feel its weight before you touch it. Solid enough to be real. Light enough to be forgotten. There are no marks on it. No symbols. No scratches. Not even a name. It was made simply because someone once needed something small to hold while thinking. The hearth keeper picks it up and turns it slowly in their hands. Not inspecting, but letting the edges touch skin, as if testing whether this shape still remembers how to be held.
Then they place it back where it lay, not on a shelf, not under cloth, just left upon the wood like an offering that needs no altar. You may pick it up now or leave it. It will not change because of your choice. But if you do take it, run your thumb along its rim and feel how even in stillness, some things hold their form long after use has ended. Across from you, a wide tray lies half covered with folded cloths, thick linens that once protected tools or carried work across the room. They are now laid out in a pattern of their own making. Not neatly stacked, but arranged like petals falling gently around a center point. Each fold is deliberate, yet without purpose. The edges curl slightly at the corners from age and storage, and some have faded where light touched them for years. One cloth bears a small stain, dark brown, oval in shape, as if something warm once rested there. The hearth keeper lifts one edge with care, not to unfold it, but just to let you see what's beneath. Another layer of the same material, folded again, then tucked under the first like a secret. They do not open the whole thing. No need to. You can watch as they place their palm flat against the top fold and press down softly. Once, as if saying hello to something old.
There is no urgency in this motion. It does not mean anything beyond being felt. And yet, it feels like an acknowledgement that things have been used, stored, worn, and still remain whole enough to be touched without fear. You might lay your hand on the cloth too. Press down just as they did if you want. Or simply let your fingers hover above it, feeling how air moves between layers, how warmth pools in the space beneath where a body once rested. Beyond that, there is a shelf near the back wall, low and worn smooth by hands that passed over it many times. On it sits a row of small stone bowls, not carved from one piece, but formed from collected fragments, each bowl made of different kinds of rock, stacked loosely side by side like children left behind after play. They vary in size, some deep, others shallow. One has a hairline crack running through its base. Another is nearly seamless. Each holds nothing now. Not dust, not water, just space. You might glance at them without meaning to, and your eye catches on. The way light still gathers just beneath the rim of one where it reflects faintly. Not bright, but enough to make you pause.
The hearthkeeper moves slowly toward that shelf, not reaching for any bowl in particular. They only stand beside it and look down, as if remembering a sound or shape from long before. There is no expression on their face, no breath drawn deeper than usual. Just stillness, the kind that comes when memory does not need to be summoned. You are not asked to join them. You are not told what they see. But you may stand yourself just for a moment and let your hands fall open at your sides as if releasing something no longer needed. Or you might kneel beside the shelf and press your palm flat against the stone floor. Feel how it remains cool beneath, even in this quiet room where heat has long been gone. There is a small jar on the far side of the bench now. Not new, not empty, but full of something that was once liquid. It sits upright, sealed with a cork stopper and wrapped in cloth so soft it nearly dissolves into your fingers when you touch it. The contents are thick, dark red, like old wine left too long in sunlight, but they do not move, not even slightly. You may look at the jar. You may run your thumb along its rim, but no one expects you to open it. No need to know what's inside. It has already decided, on its own, that it will stay closed until time finds a reason.
And right now, there is only rest. The hearthkeeper turns from the shelf and walks back toward the center of the space, where the bench remains empty except for the moss, the clay token, the folded cloth, and the stone bowls still in their row. They do not hurry. Their feet make no sound on the floor, just a soft settling, like dust returning to place. You may notice now how the air has changed. Not colder or warmer, but thicker with silence, as if time itself has slowed to match your breathing. Your chest rises and falls gently. You are aware of it, not because you want to be, but because there is nothing else to attend to. There's a small basket tucked beneath the bench, half hidden by shadow. It contains no tools, only smooth river stones, each one worn round from water and time. Their surfaces darkened, with mineral stains that look like veins or old scars. Some are larger than your palm, others fit easily in your hand. They do not need to be sorted. No reason to arrange them by size or color. You feel it in your fingers before you see it. The way the air shifts just above the bench, like a breath held too long by something that remembers how to be still. A thread of warmth rises from beneath the cloth where the moss rests. Not enough to stir your skin, but enough to tell you it's there, alive in its quiet way, breathing slow and low with the rhythm of stone and time. The hearth keeper has turned toward a narrow alcove tucked between two shelves, one that seems built more for storage than sight. There is no door, only an arch of smooth-faced rock, worn down by centuries of hands passing through, not in search of anything specific, but simply to be near where things are kept without being used. You might look there if you choose. The alcove holds a single shelf, high enough that reaching requires stretching your arms fully, and it bears only 3 objects. A brass key with no lock attached, its bow worn smooth by fingers long gone, a strip of woven hemp that has frayed at both ends like an old song's last line, and a small jar made not of glass, but of layered wood. Thin rings stacked and glued together so tightly, the grain runs in perfect concentric circles. It is sealed with beeswax, the surface slightly dented where it was pressed closed. No label, no markings. Nothing to suggest what might be inside, beyond a faint scent, like crushed mint left out under moonlight for weeks. The hearth keeper does not touch any of them. They stand before the alcove, as if waiting for something that has already passed, or perhaps listening to silence so deep it hums beneath the floorboards.
Your attention lingers on the way their shadow leans slightly forward, not in expectation, but in memory, like a body remembering how to bend even after the need is gone. From the far end of the bench comes another small motion. A single wooden peg has rolled free from where it was placed earlier, drifting slowly across the stone floor until it stops just beneath your foot. It is light, unfinished, with no notch cut into its head and barely any taper along the shaft, more like a scrap than anything meant to hold. You might pick it up if you wish. Feel how cool it feels in your hand. Notice how one side has been smoothed by something other than tools, a worn cloth or a palm that knew this shape long ago. But no one asks you to act. The hearth keeper moves now toward the wall behind the bench, where there is an opening cut into the rock not quite high enough for standing. It leads to a narrow passage, just wide enough for one person, shallow like a thought forgotten mid-sentence. Inside, nothing is visible. Only darkness that does not feel hungry or endless. You might press your palm against the edge of it and feel how cool the stone remains even where heat once passed through. There is no reason to enter. The hearth keeper places their hands flat on either side of the opening and leans in slightly, not stepping forward, only offering themselves to the stillness within. A moment passes, then another. No sound comes from inside. Not a footfall, not a breath, not even dust settling. But when they pull back, you notice that one of their fingers has left behind a faint mark on the stone. Not dirt or sweat, but something like ash. Fine and grey, as if burned long ago in some other place. They do not wipe it away. Instead, they turn to face you, slowly, deliberately. Not with intention to speak, nor to direct, but simply because you are there, and being present is enough. Their eyes hold no need for understanding, no demand for response. They look at the space between your hands where you have let them rest open, palms up, and do not move. You may feel the weight of their gaze without feeling judged by it. Then they step back toward the center, moving with such care that even their shadow seems to float rather than fall. The bench remains untouched. The moss stays soft beneath its cloth. The river stones lie scattered as if dropped from a dream. And in this stillness, something begins to shift. Not outwardly, but inward. A quiet expansion of space around you. The air grows deeper, not darker, but fuller. Like water rising slowly in an old well where the surface has long forgotten its name. You might press your ear against the wall behind the bench and hear nothing at first. Then, after several breaths, faint vibrations come up through the stone. Not a rhythm, not music or voice, but something like memory itself, moving beneath your skin. A small drawer pulls open on its own, just an inch. Not from wind nor hand. It does not creak. There is no sound at all, except for the soft release of pressure. Inside lies only a single piece of leather, thick and unmarked, curled slightly, as though it had been folded into itself long before being laid down.
Its edges are frayed, but even suggesting it was never meant to be used in any task requiring strength or speed. It does not need repair. It does not ask for attention. The hearth keeper reaches inside without hesitation and lifts the leather free. They do not examine it. Do not stretch it out. Instead, they fold it slowly, once, then again, until it fits neatly into their lap, like a blanket left over from another time. You may watch them do this with no need to understand why.
There is a jar on the floor near your feet now. Not one you remember seeing before. That holds nothing but stillness. Its glass is clouded at the base, as though something once swirled inside had dissolved completely into the material itself. The lid sits loose atop it, not because it was forgotten, but because no force could ever make it seal again. You might place your hand over the jar's surface and feel how cool it remains, even where heat should have lingered. Not cold exactly, more like absence that has settled in so completely it becomes a kind of temperature. The hearth keeper stands now and walks to the far side of the room, where there is a low table made from a single slab of slate, split unevenly during its shaping, but left unaltered for reasons no one remembers. On it rests a small pile of clay fragments, cracked, broken, not whole enough to be called pieces of anything useful. Each fragment bears a faint impression. The curve of a thumbprint here, the mark of a fingernail there, a shallow divot that might have once held water or seed. They do not pick them up. Instead, they place their hands flat on top of the table and let them rest. Palms down, fingers spread, not in prayer or surrender, but as if confirming something known, that even broken things can be part of a surface worth honoring. That weight is not always carried by completeness. You may do the same. Let your hands lie there, feeling how the stone holds heat from long ago and yet does not burn. How it remembers warmth without needing to give it back. A soft sound comes then, not from any object, nor from movement, but from within you. A sigh so quiet it might have been imagined, or perhaps just a release of air that had been waiting in your chest for hours. You did not will it. It simply happened. And when it does, the room seems to settle deeper into itself,
like a stone sinking slowly into soil. The hearth keeper turns away from the table and walks toward a niche carved into the wall where no tool has ever lived. There is only space inside. No shelf, no hook, just depth. They press their palm against it for a moment, then step back. Then they remove one of the thick cloths from the bench. Its folds already loosened, and lay it gently across the floor between you and the hearth. Not to cover anything, not to protect, only to be there, as if space itself needs a surface upon which to rest when nothing else is required. You might lie down on it or not. No one says either way. You are lying on the cloth as it lies, no longer a thing to be used, but a presence already part of the room's quiet. The air has thickened where you breathe in, not with weight, but with stillness that does not press down so much as hold itself around you, like a shape carved into soft earth. There is no need to move, no reason to shift your body or adjust your arms. You are already where the room allows you to be, contained by space without being enclosed. The hearth keeper has turned toward the wall again, not with urgency, but with the kind of motion that comes from knowing exactly what will happen next, though nothing is expected to happen at all. They reach into a shallow groove along the stone base, where no one would expect anything to be stored. Their fingers curl around something small and round, a single wooden bead, its surface worn smooth by time, not use. It has been left there for so long that it seems more like a fossil than an object, something the wall itself decided to keep as a memory of touch. They lift it slowly and place it on the edge of a low shelf carved into the same stone, where no other item sits. Not even dust accumulates here. The bead rests alone, not waiting for anything. It is not meant to be part of an arrangement, nor does it claim its position with pride. It simply exists there as one more proof that some things belong in place just because they've always been. You might look at it and feel how small the world can become when you settle into a single point. How the space around the bead becomes vast, not from distance, but from absence of demand. There is no need to name it, or remember where it came from, or ask if it will be used again. It has already fulfilled its purpose, being placed. The hearth keeper does not leave this shelf behind. Instead, they turn and walk back toward the bench that runs along one wall. Its surface worn down by decades of hands passing over tools now long gone. There is no tool on it now, except for a length of cord, coiled loosely like old roots left to dry in sunlight after a storm. It is not knotted or tied at either end. No loop has been made, yet it does not unravel, as if its form depends only on being present. They pick up the cord and hold it between both hands, not to wind or untangle, but merely to feel how it lies across their palms like a thread that once connected two things far apart, now severed without ceremony.
It has no function in this room, no use in any task known to anyone who lives here anymore. But it is not discarded either. They let go of one end and allow the cord to fall gently onto the bench. Then they reach into their pocket, not for a tool nor a key, but for something that seems too small to carry. A single dried seed pod, split open at one end like a mouth that forgot how to close. It is not planted anywhere. No soil has been prepared for it, but it rests in the palm of their hand as if waiting only for breath. They set it down beside the cord and step back. You may notice now that every object placed on the bench, each small thing, each unclaimed item, is arranged with no regard to order or purpose. There is no stack, no symmetry, no method. One keepsake lies sideways, another tilted slightly toward the hearth, as though drawn by warmth, even in absence of flame. The hearth keeper walks again, not toward the door, not toward any light, but toward a corner where two walls meet at an angle that has never been corrected. It leans inward just enough to suggest a shelter no one ever entered. In this corner stands a small wooden frame, built with care but never completed. Its legs are carved and sanded, its sides joined with precise joints, but the top remains open, as if someone had begun it and then decided not to finish.
No nails or glue were used. No intention of completion was recorded in the wood. The space above is empty, not waiting for a lid, nor filled with dust. It simply stays that way. Incomplete because it never needed to be whole. The hearth keeper places their hand flat against one side of the frame and presses gently, just enough to feel how solid the joinery remains, despite its lack of closure. Then they step back and let go. There is no sound, no shift in weight, but you might sense deep within your body a quiet acknowledgement that some things do not require completion to be real. The air between them has changed, not with temperature or movement, but with presence. as if the space itself has grown heavier in its own stillness, yet softer than before. You may close your eyes now and feel how the darkness behind your lids is no longer empty. It holds shapes, small ones, quiet ones. A bent wire curled like an unspun thread. A piece of fabric folded into the shape of memory. A ring without metal or stone. Only the impression it once left on someone's finger. The hearth keeper turns slowly now and walks toward the back wall, where a series of shallow shelves have been carved into the rock, each level higher than the last, not for display, but because they fit better at their height. On one shelf rests a row of smooth stones, each polished by time and touch, not water or fire. They are arranged side by side, spaced just enough apart to show how differently they reflect the faint light that comes from nowhere. One is gray with flecks like ash, another dark green, almost black at its center. One has tiny ridges along one face, like fingerprints pressed into stone long ago and forgotten. The third is pale white, veined through with silver lines that seem to shift when you look away. The hearth keeper does not touch any of them. They do not move the shelf or rearrange anything, but they stand before it for a long time, their hands at their sides, palms open, not in offering, nor in prayer, but as if receiving something only silence can give. You might imagine that your own hands could feel this same openness now, how warmth gathers where there is no source, how stillness holds more than air ever could. Not because it promises anything, but because it simply stays. After a while, the hearth keeper begins to move again, but not toward any object or task. They step slowly into the center of the room and stand with feet apart, shoulders relaxed, head level. The cloth beneath them remains undisturbed.
No wind has stirred it, yet their body shifts slightly as though adjusting to an unseen current. They do not turn to you. There is no signal, no cue. But something in the way they stand tells you that this moment is not about performance or expectation. It is a quiet confirmation of being here. Present without doing, awake without acting. You might feel how your own body begins to follow, how your breath slows, not because you're trying to, but because it has found a rhythm no effort was needed to create. Your spine lengthens not by force, but by letting go. Your legs relax into the cloth as though they have always known this shape. A soft sound returns, not from outside, nor from within any object, but from somewhere in between. Like wind through dry reeds at dawn, or a thread slipping slowly through an eye. It is not loud enough to be named, not sharp enough to register clearly, but it exists as if the room itself has exhaled. The hearth keeper lowers their arms and lets them hang by their sides, palms turned outward, not in surrender, nor in invitation, but as proof that hands do not need to hold anything to belong to a place. You might notice how your own fingers are no longer curled, how they lie open on the cloth like leaves resting after rain, unfurling into stillness without effort. You feel how the air near your chest has thickened, not with weight, but with presence, like a breath that wasn't yours, yet has settled into your ribs as if it always belonged there.
The hearth keeper is no longer standing in the center of the room. They are beside the low table where the pegs were once sorted, now empty except for a single dark wooden rod laid across its surface like a quiet bridge between two things that need not be joined. It rests without purpose, yet it feels complete just as it is. No hole to fill, no end to reach. The light from the hearth does not touch it directly, but there's a softness around its edges, as though memory has taken up residence in its grain. You might let your awareness drift down toward your hands again, not to do anything with them, only to notice how they are resting now. Fingers relaxed and spaced apart like petals that have opened too slowly to be hurried. One thumb lies slightly higher than the other, not because of a decision, but because gravity has chosen its path without you knowing. The cloth beneath you is thick, woven from something heavy and slow growing. A plant that only blooms once every 10 years in caves far below the world, where roots twist through stone for centuries before they ever see light. It smells faintly of damp earth after rain, not sour or wild, but deep and patient, like a memory of weather you've never felt. The hearth keeper moves again, but slowly, not toward anything specific. They reach out with one hand, not to take, only to brush the air near the far wall, where a single shelf holds nothing except 3 small glass vials filled with powdered stone. Each color different, each suspended in stillness, as if frozen mid-fall. One is pale blue, like dust from morning frost on old ice. Another carries fine gray specks that shift when you look at it sideways. The third seems to hold no substance at all. Only a depth so quiet it makes your eyes ache slightly just by being near it. The hearth keeper does not touch the vials. They do not move them. They simply let their fingers hover above the glass for long enough that time stretches itself thin and smooth. You might notice how the space between your shoulder blades has softened, how the muscles there have released without warning, as though something inside you said, "This is enough." No more need to stand upright against anything. No need to carry what wasn't meant to be carried. The weight of a long day lies not in your limbs, but in the silence behind your eyes. A silence that does not demand attention, only acceptance. Now there's another sound, not from the hearth, nor the walls, nor any object you can name. It is deeper than resonance, closer to vibration, like the lowest hum of stone beneath a slow river. It comes up through the floor like breath from deep earth. You don't need to hear it clearly. You feel it in your bones as an understanding that this place has not been built by hands alone. It was shaped by time itself, the way roots grow around rock, or how water wears down stone over centuries without haste. The room is older than any memory stored here, older even than the silence. The hearth keeper walks now toward a narrow alcove tucked between 2 shelves, one that seems too small to hold anything. Yet, when they step inside, their body fits perfectly, as though carved for it. They do not sit or stand in any particular way. They simply place one hand flat against the stone wall and let the other hang by their side. Their breathing is so slow you cannot tell if they are drawing air at all. It may be that the room breathes for them. You might feel how your own chest has become a still pool. No ripples, no waves. Your thoughts do not come in clusters or stories. They arrive like dust, settling after wind. A shape from long ago. A child's hand on a wooden beam. A pattern of light through a window that never opened wide enough to be called a doorway. The details are there, but without meaning. Not forgotten, just resting. On the wall beside the alcove is a small indentation, just deep enough for one fingertip to press in and stay. It is worn smooth by time, not by touch, but by absence. Like something that once sat here has left only its shape behind.
The hearthkeeper does not place their hand there. They do not need to. Their presence fills the space as though it were always meant for them. The air shifts slightly, not from movement, nor draft, but from stillness itself, deciding to change. It is not a sound, yet you feel it in your ears, as if something has been released without breaking. The light from the hearth dims further, not by dying out, but by becoming less concerned with being seen. It no longer needs to prove its existence. It simply is. Now, there's another object on the floor. Something small and round, made of dark wood like the rod earlier, but polished to a deep sheen that holds light in its surface without reflecting it outward. It sits near the edge of your vision, not placed deliberately, yet perfectly aligned with where you would look if you turned your head slightly. You do not turn. You are allowed not to notice. You might feel how your breath has begun to echo inside, less like sound than sensation. The way air moves through a long tunnel that does not end anywhere, but still feels complete. The rhythm is no longer yours, yet it fits with perfect ease. There's no effort in matching it, because you are not trying. You are simply following the shape of what already exists. The hearthkeeper steps back from the alcove and walks toward a low cabinet set into the far wall. Its doors closed, its surface unmarked by handles or hinges. It is carved directly from stone, as if grown rather than built, with one shallow groove running down its center like a seam in skin that never healed. The hearthkeeper places both hands flat on it, not to open, not to push, but simply to rest. Their fingers spread out across the surface, each one finding its own place
without adjustment. You might notice how your legs have grown heavier, not with fatigue, but with surrender, like roots sinking into soil that has waited for them forever. You are no longer lying down because you were told to. You are lying down because this is where your body remembers it belongs. A new texture appears in the air, not a smell nor a sound, but something like memory made physical. It feels like the inside of an old glove after years of use. Soft on the fingers, warm at the palm, with tiny creases that hold the shape of hands long gone. You do not need to recall whose hand it was. The feeling is enough. The hearth keeper turns now toward a corner where a single wooden stool sits. No backrest, no arms, just a flat seat and 4 legs worn smooth by decades of quiet use. They sit on it slowly, not because they are tired, but because sitting is the only way to stay exactly where you are without moving at all. Their hands rest in their lap, not folded, not clenched, but simply resting as though holding something invisible that does not need names. You might feel how your own hands have begun to sink into the cloth beneath you, less like lying down than merging. As if the fabric is learning to hold your shape, and you are learning to stop resisting it. There's a small tray on the floor near the hearth, a shallow thing of dark wood with no visible joins, its surface etched in fine lines that form no pattern, only suggestion, like rain falling across stone that remembers nothing. On it rests 7 pieces of wax, each different color, but all shaped exactly the same. Smooth ovals, slightly flattened on one side, as if pressed by a palm too long to remember. You are not listening to a story, but to the quiet that follows one, where every word has already settled into place like ash in soil. The air holds stillness not because it lacks motion, but because everything is where it was meant to be. Your eyes do not open. They simply release their hold on what lies ahead. There's no need to look at the tray with wax again. The shapes are known now, even if unnamed. One piece has cooled too much for warmth. Its color, a deep indigo that seems to drink light rather than reflect it. Another holds a faint yellow glow, not from pigment, but from memory, of sunlight caught in honeyed glass, of firelight passing through uncut stone on some distant evening long ago. You don't reach for them. They are not meant to be taken. The hearth keeper turns toward the wall behind you, the one with no door. Only a smooth plain of rock where shadows do not gather and light does not linger. Their hand lifts slowly, as though pulling something from thin air. It is not pulled. It is remembered. From nowhere comes a small square of cloth, folded once, then again, with edges so worn they have lost their sharpness, but gained softness. It lies in the palm like an old promise, folded into itself for decades, without ever needing to be unfolded. The hearth keeper places it on your lap, not because you asked, not because you wanted, but because it was never meant to stay elsewhere. You feel its weight as if you've always known this cloth by touch alone. It smells faintly of dust and old firewood, but not the kind that burns, the kind that waits. There is a shelf beneath the hearth, low, unmarked, carved from the same dark stone as the cabinet. On it rests a row of small glass bottles with no labels, each filled with a different shade of still water. Not clear, not murky. Each one holds color like breath held too long. Pale amber, gray-green, a deep violet that feels heavier than liquid should be. They do not rattle when touched. They do not tremble at the sound of your breathing. One bottle moves slightly, not by hand, not by wind, but because something inside it has shifted in its sleep. A slow swirl begins near the base, then stops as if reconsidering. You notice only because you are no longer trying to see everything. The hearth keeper walks now toward a long table made of split wood, each plank sanded down so thoroughly that grain has become invisible, replaced by texture like fine skin stretched over time. On it lies a single object, not unfinished, not complete, but paused. A small tool with no name, its handle worn smooth from use, you never witnessed. It sits at the center of the table, as if waiting for someone who already arrived and left without saying goodbye. The hearth keeper does not pick it up. Instead, they place one finger against the edge of the plank nearest to it, just touching, barely pressing, and hold that position for so long that your breath slows in rhythm with their stillness. You might notice how the floorboards beneath you have begun to breathe. Not literally, but in a way that feels like breathing. slow shifts underfoot, as if they were once alive, and now remember what it is to be felt. A thread of warmth spreads from where your heel presses into stone, just enough to remind you that heat still exists, even when the fire is no longer visible. It does not come from flame. It comes from depth, the way old soil holds warmth long after sunlight leaves. A new sound enters, though it may be only imagined. A quiet creaking of joints, not wood or stone, but something older, like bones, settling into rest. You do not look toward the source. The hearth keeper is now standing beside a low rack where hanging tools have been arranged without order, each one with no function you can name. One has hooks shaped like curled fingers. Another bears blades that are blunt and dull as river stones. There's a rod with tiny rings spaced evenly along its length, each ring made of a different metal, none of which match the others in color or weight. They do not chime when touched. There is no music here, but you feel their presence like fingers brushing your spine from behind. The hearth keeper lifts one of these tools, a thin rod with 3 rings near the base, and holds it at eye level before setting it gently back into place. Nothing changes in the room, but something inside you does. A subtle release, as if an invisible thread tied around your ribs has loosened without warning. You are not told to let go. You simply do. There is a small bowl on the floor near your feet, a shallow dish of dark clay with no glaze, its surface cracked in fine lines that look like dried riverbeds after months of drought.
Inside, it rests exactly 8 pebbles, smoothed by time and water you never saw. They are not arranged in any pattern, yet they form a shape without design. 3 near the front edge, 2 to the side, 1 behind, 2 more scattered at random. 1 is black, with flecks like stars seen through fog. Another glows faintly when touched, not with light, but with a memory of warmth. You do not pick it up. It does not need to be moved.
Not emptiness. Space. The kind that holds everything without needing to be filled. You do not need to see the table again. You know it is there. And you know what happens when things are left behind. Not discarded, but simply let rest. They reach beneath a low shelf and pull out something thin. A strip of material, no wider than your hand, woven from fibers that seem neither plant nor animal, yet resemble both. It hangs like smoke between fingers, weightless in motion, but solid enough to feel when held. The hearth keeper runs one end across the surface of the table, not to clean, not to mark, but simply to trace a line that does not exist. A shadow passes beneath it, as if something had moved through air too quiet to be noticed. You are lying on your side now. Your body curled slightly inward,